the cursed prince, the battle demon, driven mad by blood, that is the name of the Archduke of the North. His name is Kalyan Adel Heverus. The source of all this was the Dowager Empress Astara. She entered the palace, leaving, married his father after his wife's death, and in order to put her son on the throne, tried to undermine the position of the boy and his brother. While he and his brother went for a walk, nothing should have foreshadowed trouble, but it so happened that he died in an accident. After this, Astara immediately blamed the guy for this and expelled him from the palace. It happened so quickly, as if she had prepared for it in advance. Without a single coin of support, he had to go north, to the so-called Land of Doom. Having lost everyone who was dear to him, he was left with only endless silence. And even as time went on, she was the only one who always remained close. It was the most difficult period in his life, which in some sense hardened his endurance. The silence everywhere was so oppressive that it seemed as if it was mercilessly strangling him, as if punishing him for something. Even after Astara's son became emperor, the surveillance of Kalyan did not stop. And then something happened. A week ago, at a banquet in honor of the victory in the Kashar War, a situation happened. A guy approaches the Dowager Empress with the words that for a very long time he wondered why she tried to prevent him from entering the palace, and then asked her directly if he understood correctly that she was going to announce his wedding without his consent. Because these rumors were already everywhere, and he had to discuss it with her, no matter how much he didn't want to do it. She answers him with an impassive face that it is very painful for her to hear this, hinting that he has a worse opinion of her than he should. And then she said that she only wanted, as befits a mother, to reward his great services in this war by arranging an alliance with a beautiful young lady. It was impossible for him to listen to this. He tries to restrain himself and says it as it is, which is already clear to everyone. She just wants to follow him through Lady Ruzebek, so that this would not drag on for long. He warned that he was going to cancel this marriage proposal, whether she liked it or not. And the woman in response asked if he really thought he could do whatever he wanted. Since they are already so frank, he said that he already has a woman whom he promised to marry, so he is not even considering any other candidates. He has no desire to listen to her anymore, so on the way he said that about the word mother, he would not like to hear it from her lips ever again. Kalyan never considered her his mother in his life, and every time he hears something like that, he feels a strong denial inside and a desire to punish the one who says it. After some time, when he was walking down the corridor, an assistant runs up to him, who in a matter of minutes found out about his bride, about whom he spoke with Astara to find out whether it was true or not. And then he says that it's all a lie. He simply had no choice but to say it. Only in the opinion of the assistant, a lie of this kind will sooner or later be revealed. And finding a bride right away so that she will play along will be problematic. This is not news for the guy. He himself understands who would want to marry the damned prince. He is sure that not a single girl can have any feelings for him, only if it is not real. For business, this is exactly what interests him. That day, he knew for sure that he would have to find a way out. Otherwise, the Dowager Empress would come up with something again. And after some time, a beautiful girl named Leticia miraculously appears in front of him. She herself asked to use her because she wants to become a shield that will help him avoid this wedding. Everything started to work out for the best. But first, Kalyan wanted to know what she wanted in return, because it was unlikely that anyone would want to help him for free. Leticia only needs a place to live for 6 months and nothing more. She promised to leave in 6 months without any demands or problems. To fulfill this condition, he won't even have to try. The guy is perplexed because he expected to hear something more. Naturally, he agreed very quickly, and she looked at him as if she had asked for a lot of money and received it. He could have treated her more politely after that, but for some reason, he asked her not to create any problems that he would have to solve. It sounded offensive. Kalyan warned her that if she became even a little bit of a burden, the contract would be invalid. And then he simply walked away. Although for the two of them, this relationship is nothing more or less than just a contract, he could have been softer. And in the meantime, as promised, Leticia lived quietly in the castle. At first, he did not even see or hear her, as if she did not exist. And since he spent most of his time away from home, they very rarely crossed paths, and there were times when he forgot about her altogether. In those moments when the guy returned, they sat down at the table together, and he saw how happy she was to see him, like a little child who waited for her parents to come home from work. Surprisingly, they also sometimes went for a walk in the garden. Leticia did not expect this from him, and when he suggested it, she was incredibly pleased. So she at least occasionally felt that he remembered her. Day after day passed like this. It became a monotonous routine to which they both became accustomed. At some point, he had the thought that, although he hadn't noticed it before, such monotony, it was wonderful. The kind of girl she is. She literally solved his problem, and he doesn't owe her anything for it. She's like a gift from heaven. But what he certainly didn't expect from himself was the desire to extend this relationship for longer than 6 months. He had to be honest with himself to admit that he was happy with this girl, and he didn't want her to disappear from his life after some time, as they had agreed initially. The very day came when she came to him with the words that it was time to leave. And she also immediately thanked him for everything that he had done for her. It turned out that there was something she hadn't told him about and had kept a secret to this day. And when the time came to say goodbye, she only now admitted her illness. Callian lost control of himself because he did not expect this and was afraid that all this was very serious. She tells him that it is not curable, and if she is lucky, she has no more than a couple of months left. Leticia recalled that he himself told her not to cause him trouble. He is so worried that he started to get nervous and asked the same question over and over again. How can he cure her? Because even if it is impossible, he must make it possible. He is ready to do anything, everything possible and impossible to heal her. And in the meantime, at that moment, the assistant bursts in, and for some reason he did not knock to ask if he could come in or not. Usually he does, but this time it's an imperial order. The guy must go on a campaign immediately. If only they all knew how untimely this order was, it would be good, but he couldn't refuse, so he slightly hugged the girl and promised to return soon. He ordered her to stay here and wait for him, because if she left and something happened to her, he would not survive it and would blame himself for it for the rest of his days. In the end, as he wanted, she stayed in the estate and waited for him as long as necessary. Only it so happened that on the very day he returned, she couldn't take it anymore and died an hour before he entered the territory. As he held the cold urn with nothing left in it, the boy finally understood that even his miserable life became at least a little happier thanks to her. The beautiful lady who, although not for long, improved his life and made it a little brighter. After that incident, he couldn't think of anything else. His thoughts were only about her and how terrible it is to lose a person. You can never be prepared for that. He is kneeling in front of the temple. The rain does not bother him. He does not notice it, because now it is not the main thing. He really regrets that the girl didn't tell him about her problems earlier, because maybe if he had known about it at the beginning, something could have been done about it. He can't stop crying. It's all very hard. She was a very good person who doesn't deserve all this. If only he could see her smiling next to him again, he wouldn't need anything else to be happy. When he was having a hard time coming to terms with the loss, it was at that moment that something happened. Darkness appeared in his eyes, and a strange sound that was unlike anything else. And then he opens his eyes, sees familiar faces in front of him, and doesn't understand what happened. It's as if time flew by before him. They all ask what's wrong with him, but he can't even answer anything because he doesn't know what to say or what it was all about. Well, he doesn't want to ask any questions so that no one would think that something happened to him. But he himself thinks about where he is now and why his warriors are looking at him like that. And then someone starts to approach the milord about the upcoming banquet in honor of the victory. But he was not ready for this. These are of course good words, but he does not understand why they are talking about victory. He even slightly shouted at one of them, and he explains that the Dowager Empress plans to announce his wedding at this banquet. There would be nothing strange in all this, but this victory banquet took place a long time ago. Suddenly, some blue smoke started appearing around him. He immediately had an association with some kind of magic, because he had no other explanation for it. Then a voice appears that only he can hear. He asks not to dare tell anyone that he just returned in time. This phrase actually gave all the answers to his questions. Now everything is clear, but it doesn't make it any easier. And also, a wound appeared on his arm out of nowhere. He's not sure, but if the pain is so real, it means he's really gone back to the past and it's not a dream. One might think that it would take him a long time to get used to and realize what was happening. But he quickly remembered the girl and decided that this time he would not allow anything to happen to her. First of all, I need to meet her somehow. If only I knew where she is, that would be great. And meanwhile, while he was looking into the sky at this smoke and listening to the voice, everyone saw and still does not understand what he saw there. For them, none of this existed. They heard nothing, and are trying to understand what my lord was reacting to in this way. When the guy realized that he was the only one who saw and heard all this, he pretended that nothing had happened and that it had just seemed that way to them. Apparently, he returned just before the victory banquet. The Dowager Empress will announce his marriage to her puppet at the banquet. And to do this, she will not allow him into the palace. Now that he knows the future, it's much easier to plan something and prevent her from doing it her way. When asked if Milorda was simply going to accept a marriage he didn't want, he replied that he had an option. And then he said that if she wanted the wedding to go smoothly, she would prevent him from entering the palace, which meant he should come there with another person. It was very simple. After that, the gentleman asked the assistant to get that very potion that allows you to change your appearance in emergency situations. Lucky that this time the guy did not forget about it. It comes in handy very rarely, but now is the time when it is needed more than ever. Meanwhile, everyone is asking who he is going to disguise himself as. After all, security is strict, and it is unlikely that they will let just anyone into the banquet. Kalyan thinks that Winston Hilton would be perfect. You couldn't think of anyone better. He is one of the favorites of the Dowager Empress. This man is so close to her that in his guise, one can enter the palace without problems. He doesn't have any other backup plans yet. He decided to solve problems as they come, especially since now it will be easier for him to navigate and get out of it, knowing everything in advance. Meanwhile, one of the invited people is rushing to the banquet. The guy deliberately chose a shortcut so as not to be late. He is enjoying this trip, and also says something about how good it is that he has finally won the Empress's favor, as if he can get some benefit from this and is already working on it. But he only knew that even when it seems that everything is under control, force majeure can arise. This is exactly what is happening to him now. The carriage suddenly stops, and someone opens the front door. The guy asks in a menacing voice what is going on, but he is afraid to see the face of the person because of whom they stopped. Everything happens so fast. Before you can look back, he is already tied with some kind of rope and is under complete control. Realizing that the situation is dangerous, he begins to resist and tries to scream. But the forest is huge, and it is unlikely that anyone will hear him. And even if this happens, it is unlikely that anyone will dare to save him. In the end, the driver and he himself were tied up. And in the meantime, they were told that they shouldn't have been the Dowager Empress's puppet. And that's exactly what they would pay for. It turns out that this is the same Winston that Killian is going to pretend to be during the banquet. In order to become identical in appearance to a certain person, you need to be in his presence and be sure to tell him about it. You won't have to worry that he will tell someone something. While the effect is in effect, the magic will not allow him to do this. And after that, he will forget that this happened at all. Everything is thought out to the smallest detail. What is happening now is absolutely painless, and the potion itself is so expensive that it is better to save it and use it only in emergency situations. Some time passed. The guy knows that Leticia's carriage should appear here soon, so he doesn't take his eyes off the side where it should pass. Now he sees this carriage. He has indescribable emotions that cannot be described in words. It was impossible to stand still. He goes in her direction and is already in anticipation of seeing her beautiful eyes. Here he is, already opening the door. For him, this is too exciting a moment, but the guy is trying not to show it. He has no idea how all this could end. All he can do is believe and hope that everything will go exactly as he planned. The door opens, and he sees a crying girl in front of him, but he expected to see her in a completely different mood. It hurts him a lot to watch her cry. He immediately wanted to solve all her problems, but at the same time, the guy understands that even now he needs to be more careful so that it doesn't seem strange from the outside. He just asked what the problem was, and she replied that everything was fine and asked him not to worry about her. And then he says that if it were him, he would never take a sedative. And after that, he asked if he understood correctly that she had already managed to do this and even took her hand. The lady asks in confusion how he knew this, and he explains that the sedative usually leaves behind a specific smell that is easy to recognize. Then he asked her to use another remedy that he had brought here especially for her. Kalyan understands perfectly well that she may not trust him and doubts whether it is worth taking medicine from a stranger, or rather from someone she cannot fully trust. She looks at him with distrust, but it is clear how she wants him to do it sincerely and with good intentions. The only thing is that in any case, she has no other option but to believe him and do what he suggests. Leticia has serious doubts about the correctness of her decision, but she still does it no matter what. As soon as the medicine was inside her, she immediately felt in an inexplicable way, some kind of miracle had happened. The lady did not expect that everything would happen so quickly or easily. If she had only known earlier that such medicines existed in this world, she would have bought them for any amount of money. And in the meantime, Leticia asks what just happened. But first, he smiled and asked if she felt better. It turned out that she was sitting in a bad mood and crying because she felt bad, and she didn't know how to solve it. With the appearance of the guy and his miracle cure, now nothing prevents her from getting out of the carriage with a smile and making people happy. The lady still doesn't believe what's happening. She has absolutely mixed emotions and feelings. Just a couple of minutes ago, she couldn't even imagine that everything would be resolved in a matter of seconds. It would seem that what else could spoil her mood? Because after this, she shines and wants to bring goodness to this world. But at that moment, the carriage moved a little, and the girl almost fell. She was very scared, and then the guy saves her again. He caught her, asked her not to worry, because when he is around, she can think about nothing at all. She hadn't heard such words for a long time. It sounded special to her. And also, these hugs. It was wonderful. While they look at each other, she thinks that she is sure that she has never seen this man before. But for some reason, he is so worried about her, as if they are not strangers, but have known each other for a very long time. She really wants to know the answer to this question. After all, nothing happens just like that. There must be some explanation for this. And for her, it's all very awkward and unusual, because even in her own family, no one cares about her. She's not used to someone thinking for her at all, since her own people treat her with indifference. Then she especially didn't expect anything good from strangers. She has only one question in her head. Why should he care about someone like her, who brings only misfortune? More than 10 years ago, she was adopted by the Countess of Esta. Her outstretched hand to her was the first warmth she felt, and unfortunately, the last. On the way back, when the adoption was finalized, an unexpected accident with a carriage cost her life. And so she, the only survivor, became a thorn in this family, and they constantly reproach her for this, without hiding their true attitude. It is difficult to describe in words how a little girl who felt like she was out of place in this world could grow up to be a kind person. It seems impossible, but thanks to her inner strength, she grew up to be a good person who was not spoiled by problems. The memories that she has left from the past, it is better to forget them forever. But unfortunately, this is impossible. They will stay with her forever, because every day was unbearable and seemed worse than the previous one. It is difficult for her to even remember any neutral period, because it was always difficult, offensive and unpleasant, without exception, even on holidays, even on her own birthday. In this regard, no one made an exception for her. They seemed to be charged with energy every time they saw how hard it was for her. No one was embarrassed by her age, loneliness, the fact that she was a girl. They treated her as if she was a villain and only did what was ruin everyone's life. But this is not so. There were moments when she begged to have mercy on her because she simply did not have the strength to endure and cry. The Count's eldest son repeated the same thing every day, that she was useless and that it would be better for everyone if she disappeared. After this, a person's psyche cannot remain the same. These people have caused her serious damage, and only she will have to live with this. Fight, with the strength that they took from her in childhood. It's hard to believe that there were so many adults around her, and no one understood what it was like for her to live in such conditions. It would be better if they simply ignored her and let her live normally. But on the contrary, they only made things more difficult and called her names. Over time, they convinced her that her only fault was that she did not know her place and dared to stay alive, and that it would have been better if she had not survived that disaster. Apparently, there is another reason why she felt sick in the carriage. She just has bad associations with this type of transport, but she is not ready to admit it to him yet. The girl simply said that she felt a little seasick, because if she went into details, she would feel guilty again and ruin her mood for the whole day. Meanwhile, the girl is already starting to worry that her carriage won't be able to move anytime soon, and if that happens, she'll start to panic. The guy tells her that, however, it seems they can continue the journey on horseback, and if she allows, they can ride together the rest of the way. This is the only thing he can offer her. The only thing she worries about is that no one sees them, because it can provoke a storm of rumors, which will then be long from reality, as usually happens. They can just go for a ride together, and then people will talk about something that did not happen. He has an idea for this too. It can simply be hidden. The main thing here is that she trusts him and understands that there is no other choice. and it is also desirable to be grateful to him, because he is not obliged, but still tries to help, like a real man. Kalyan asks to believe that everything will be fine. He will take control of the situation and will be responsible for it. Some time passed, and now they are approaching the territory where 2 guards meet them at the gate. It was impossible to pass by them unnoticed. I had to drive closer, and the first question sounded like this. Can I take a look at their invitation? Because without it, they don't have the right to let anyone in. They are very strict about this here. The guy gave him some piece of paper with his name on it without any problems, and immediately after that, no one detained them anymore. They could move on. He was greeted as expected, wished a good evening, and surprisingly not asked who he had arrived with, which was for the best. Everything went exactly as he promised. No one really saw her face. Now the hardest part is behind us. After the girl heard the guy being addressed by name, she tells him that she couldn't have imagined that he was the same Marquis Hilton, especially since she had never seen him in person. And then he says that it's better for her not to remember this name, as if hinting at something, but he never told the whole truth. He only made her think. At this moment, the lady notices that blood starts to flow from her nose. There's not much of it, but it is clearly not good. She must be very nervous. We need to somehow stop the bleeding or take some medicine. Kalyan noticed what happened and advised not to throw his head back under any circumstances, because it would only make things worse. Everything should flow out. He brought a napkin and asked not to worry, because this happens to him very often, and in such cases, the main thing is not to be afraid. Otherwise, there will only be more blood. It's very simple. You need to press your nose until the bleeding stops, and not think about anything bad. Leticia felt awkward again. She apologized for constantly imposing herself and would like to repay his kindness with something. The guy quickly got his bearings. He thought that since she was offering this, he could ask for anything. But she warned him in advance that she would do everything in her power. He immediately smiled. His mood improved. Apparently, he already understood how she could be useful to him. At that very second, he returned back to his real form, worried that she might get scared, but there might not be another ideal opportunity later. Here he is, already in his real body. Naturally, she recognized him immediately. She has a lot of questions, but she doesn't have the strength to ask them yet. He impressed her so much that he literally left her speechless. The girl asks him what he is doing here, and he replies that he has reasons for it. A couple of minutes passed, and now he's already saying that he has an idea of how she can repay him. He feels very uncomfortable asking about it, but it will be better for everyone. The guy is not one to drag out the intrigue. He immediately said directly that he wanted to ask her to become his wife. After the banquet, Leticia came to him herself, so it is highly likely that he will hardly refuse. He is sure that if he proposes right now, all that remains is to keep her close and find a cure. The girl explains that it will be very difficult and does not yet fully understand what she thinks about it. Everything seems easy, but on the other hand, this is a serious step. Kalyan was ready for this, and even thought about saying that he would solve any problems. Only at that moment, the lady confessed to it, that she has a fiancé, and her friends, and especially Kalyan, didn't know about it. For him, this is shocking news, which confused him a little, because it changes everything very much. At the moment when the girl gives him the handkerchief, they both heard the conversation in the next room and began to eavesdrop. The lady immediately recognized this voice. The guy asks Rose to calm down. Supposedly she herself said that she does not want to see Leticia, so he came to her alone. The girl has long suspected him of cheating, and if this is what she thought, then the situation can change very quickly, and perhaps even in her favor. Those two are talking about how they are tired of meeting in secret, and Leticia clearly heard every word. Rose, indignant, asks Patrick if he has changed his mind about marrying his fiancée, and he replies with a grin that of course he is not going to tie his life with that girl. He only needs the one with whom he is cheating on her, and he also thinks that Leticia is unworthy of a guy like him. But since he talks about it so easily, and about betrayal too, how can Rose not think about the fact that one day he will do the same to her? As we know, such people do not change, and one day she will have to understand this. And then the words were heard that finally finished off the lady. Patrick asks his mistress not to worry and promises to only use the bride for some time, and then he will simply leave her. The Archduke immediately understood what was going on, but just in case he still asked if that guy was by any chance the very same groom she had just spoken about. He already wants to go to him to sort things out, and also to explain that you can't behave like that towards girls. Otherwise, there will be those who want to stand up for them. The guy didn't really know whether she was against it or not. He was already heading towards them, but at the very last moment, she managed to stop him. Leticia grabs his hand and asks him to listen to her, because this is a situation in which she must take part, and does not want to hang her problems on him once again. She promised to deal with them herself, because she knows that person better and how to talk to him better so that he understands everything. Meanwhile, Rose asks how exactly Patrick is going to get rid of his fiancée, because he wants to know exactly what will happen next so he can plan his life, not depend on anyone, and not hide from anyone. The guy reminded that their family trades in various spices. But after these words, the girl did not quite understand what this had to do with the matter, and the question she had just asked him. After that, he says that he recently came across a very interesting spice that cannot be compared with anything else. It's a spice that can kill a person without leaving a trace. If it comes to extremes, he just uses it. That's the whole plan. It's amazing how he can talk about it so easily. If only he knew that his fiancée hears everything. This means that the most interesting part is beginning. These two smile at each other, suspect nothing. Everything is fine with them. But everything is a little different. Leticia is much closer than they can imagine. While the guy asks the girl not to worry and just wait for the right moment, his bride is already a few steps away, and she is no longer going to hide. The lady aggressively opens the curtain, and at this moment, Patrick still doesn't fully understand what will happen next. Leticia immediately said that he should have been more careful, and now, after everything he said, he will have to answer for it. The groom tries to pretend he's not nervous and ask how long she's been there so he can understand what she's heard and what she hasn't. He smiles, comes closer to her, and as always says that she could have misunderstood everything, and now he will explain everything. Only this time, nothing will work. She saw his true face and is no longer going to waste her time on a man who does not appreciate her and who only laughs at her along with his mistress. She poured a glass of wine on him and suggested that they break off the engagement, because she didn't want a relationship where only one person loved her. They have been so damaged for so long that there is no point in even trying to fix anything. The lady is with him her future and is not going to hope that he can change for her sake. When he realized that she wasn't joking with him and he couldn't laugh anymore, the guy asked what she was allowing herself to do, and she answered with a smile that he deserved worse. She just felt sorry for him. In order not to waste a lot of time, she started with the main thing, immediately reminded that if he had not cheated on her, he would have received a shipping business in this political marriage. But now, he is unlikely to get anything, and she will personally monitor this. And she also specifically said, supposedly, what a pity. Everything was in vain. And she herself looks at his reaction and waits for him to start getting nervous. Then the girl warned that they would soon send a request for termination to his residence, and would try to do everything as soon as possible. She doesn't want anything to connect them. If he betrayed her, then he doesn't deserve her attention, and not a single extra minute. Suddenly, Patrick grabs her hand and demands to listen to his answer, as if he thinks that it has some meaning. He warned that there would be no termination, that she shouldn't even dream about it. It's strange how he imagines it. He thinks it's enough that he just gives up on this idea, and that's it. And then he asked not to make a scene and just pretend that this conversation never happened. Leticia immediately asked a provocative question. He asked to pretend that there was no divorce or that she caught him with his mistress. He absolutely calmly says that, of course, both. The lady thinks that he really doesn't understand anything. For him, the benefit is much more important than her feelings. Even if he doesn't love her, he still can't be so impudent. He could have admitted that he fell out of love with her and parted on good terms. But no, he doesn't care how. The main thing is to get what he wants. There's nothing to be done. Since he doesn't want to do it the good way, we'll have to do it the bad way. Leticia suddenly reached out and took his hand, which was just in time to be taken away. After that, she said something like, some kind of game had started and thus really scared him. Now Patrick understands that she is no longer that naive girl who was very easy to control. Now everything will be exactly the opposite. His face turned red, and judging by the fact that she did exactly that, the girl knows more than, for example, his mistress. Apparently the brooch is very valuable to him, and not just a decoration. She stretched out her hand with this brooch over the balcony, and he asks her not to do stupid things in a trembling voice. Leticia is not going to give in to his fearful eyes. She ordered him to listen carefully to everything she is about to say, before she accidentally drops her right in front of the guards. If they find out that he brought a forbidden magical object into the palace, everything could get very complicated, and he will have... So now it is in his interest to do what she suggests and not resist, whether he likes it or not. And since he already knows what she wants from him, the girl is only waiting for confirmation that he is ready to break up with her and lose everything he hoped for. Leticia promised to return the brooch as soon as the marriage is officially dissolved. He cannot even hope that this can happen earlier. After this conversation, she felt so good that she wondered why she hadn't done this before, or at least thought about it. Putting off such a simple matter for later was a mistake. It's good that she started, and the process has been launched. In fact, the girl already knew that he had a mistress, so it wasn't a big surprise. She was more or less prepared for it. Otherwise, it would have been much more painful. When the father and brother find out about the divorce, they will not leave it so easily. So it is important to take this into account. You need to think ahead about how best to act, and do it so that you don't regret anything later. Now, literally, everything depends on her. One wrong decision and the situation will worsen to her disadvantage. Less than half an hour passed, and now she is already returning to Kalyan, and he is waiting for good news from her. He just saw her, immediately asked how everything went, imagined all sorts of options, because he doesn't know these people and couldn't imagine how everything could end. Since he didn't hear any screams, he thinks it's not all that bad, and thanks to the fact that the girl knows her fiancé, she was able to find an approach to him and did everything as she wanted. Now she has no reason to refuse his offer. This is exactly what she wants to talk to him about now. Since marriage is something she can do to repay him for his help, she is ready to do it. Especially since it will be clearly better with him than with Patrick, who does not even have basic respect for her, not to mention any feelings. Only before that, it is important for her to know what he means by a relationship, what will be required of her, and for what period they are concluding an agreement. Kalyan explains that he needs someone to play the role of his fiancé for a while. He doesn't require her to love him, she just needs to appear with him in public and pretend that they love each other, all because he urgently needs to avoid an unwanted marriage that is being forced upon him. And then she wonders if the Archduke really lived a life similar to the one she lived. And then she thought that perhaps if she said that she had become the Archduke's bride, then even her family would not be able to object to the dissolution of the engagement. If she manages to gain freedom in this way, it will be wonderful. So she will not only thank him, but she will also benefit from it. Meanwhile, Leticia confesses that she actually just broke off her engagement, so now there is nothing stopping her from becoming his wife. She will be happy to accept this request. Unless, of course, he has changed his mind, and nothing has changed. The guy is happy to hear this. He smiles and can't believe that everything happened so easily and quickly. Everything is going well, and now he asks her to follow him, probably tomorrow time. How much she talked with the groom, he already thought of some plan to do everything quickly. Just for a while, and here are those very words, highly appreciating the merits of the Archduke in the victory in the war. As the final reward for his efforts, the marriage of the Archduke with the daughter of the Marquis of Ruzebeck is announced. Everything was supposed to happen this way, but the guy is in a hurry to announce that another girl will become his bride. He is grateful to everyone who came to see him in the Marquise, but his chosen one is another, and if someone does not support his choice, he does not keep anyone here. Everyone immediately looked at this lady. At first, most were unhappy, but then they realized that in principle, it didn't matter to them who would become the bride. The main thing was that the couple was happy. His Majesty began to make excuses. Allegedly, he had not seen the guy, so he decided that he would not be at the banquet today, and that this news could be announced without him. He felt very ashamed that he had announced the wrong girl as his bride. But the guy doesn't hold a grudge because for him, there is no problem with it. The main thing is that he announced his decision on time, and everyone heard it. While they are talking, the girl is looking very closely at the cake. This is her weakness that is hard to resist. She wonders if it's peach or apricot. Although she's not picky about it, she loves absolutely everything. The main thing is that it's a dessert. Everything would be fine, but there is one problem. She has an allergy, which limits her a little in this regard. Meanwhile, His Majesty asks if he understands correctly that the guy has made a final decision to marry this lady. Kalyan replies that everything is absolutely correct. Moreover, he even enjoys talking about it. While they were discussing something, the guy seemed to read her mind and push towards her the cake that she could eat, and it wouldn't make her feel worse. She wonders if this is just a coincidence, or if he knows more about her than she can imagine. She has a lot of questions now, Everything is happening very quickly and inexplicably. He is such a mysterious person that she really wants to get to know him better as soon as possible. Probably everything will be, but with time. And when the emperor said that since the guy had ordered it that way, he would do as he wanted. His wife was not used to hearing anything like that. She decided to show her character, aggressively put the cup on the table, and began to be indignant. It is incomprehensible to her how the finger dares to turn the imperial decree into a joke and do whatever he wants. But she did not take into account one thing, that this is his personal life, and he has every right to act as he sees fit, even if someone from the imperial family does not like it. She asks her husband if he can't see that the Archduke is manipulating right now, and she thinks that they shouldn't tolerate this. Callian is not going to keep quiet and adapt to someone this time. He said that it seems that the Empress Dowager is still unhappy with him, or perhaps angry because the lady she chose will not become his wife. She immediately began to pretend as if she didn't understand what he was talking about, and how it related to the conversation. Callian told her directly that it would not be possible to endlessly assert that she did not understand anything. Then he came even closer and made it clear with his eyes that now she wouldn't be able to put pressure on him, no matter how much she wanted to. She perceives this as unacceptable impudence, although he is absolutely right in everything, and it is strange that she reacts this way. Then he leaned towards her again and finally asked her not to bother him anymore, especially since he was not going to come to the capital anymore anyway, and they were unlikely to see each other soon. Judging by her reaction, it seemed as if a conflict of enormous proportions was about to begin. But she could have simply minded her own business. She shouted that it was not worth bringing him to the capital, and tries to say those phrases that can hurt him. But that's how it worked before, and now everything is a little different. And then the woman can't stand it anymore. She apologizes to His Majesty, says that she needs to go back and rest, because it is impossible to stay here for even 1 minute. In that case, the guy also decided to leave with his fiancée on business, because they had already discussed everything that needed to be discussed, and now there was no point in staying. The man thought that this was the end of it, agreed, and wished everyone a good day. And then, at the very last moment, when everyone was already in the corridor, I thought that I would like to talk to the guy alone, and asked the lady to wait outside the door. If she didn't mind, of course. Callian kindly agreed to talk to him for a couple of minutes, and now asks how he can help, or maybe tell him something interesting. One might have thought that he would ask him a couple of questions that they could not discuss together. But suddenly, His Majesty decided to apologize for something. He says he thought his wife's attitude towards him would change, but it seems he still has no power. He doesn't feel like he can have the last word, and it shouldn't be like that. Callian replied very briefly that he shouldn't worry about it, and now it was really time for him to go. The gentleman is very uncomfortable that everything turned out this way. He says that he would like to meet again in some time, and the guy coldly replied that the same meeting. It won't happen again, and he would do everything possible to avoid it. Even if it sounded wrong on his part, that's his opinion. Callian has already spent too much time. He wants to quickly return to Leticia, who has already run away somewhere. He was calmly walking down the corridor, and suddenly he heard someone complaining that the girl had broken off the engagement, that she had supposedly gone crazy, and that it had been the wrong decision. Not only is this unpleasant conversation happening, but that person is also holding her hands and not letting her leave. She can't really resist, and he says that he heard that Patrick broke off the engagement with her and wants to hear from her that it's not true. The girl says that's how it was, and after that, she asked him to let her go. This is the worst thing he could hear from her. He thinks she has gone crazy, so he asks if she knows about their affairs with the Godwin family. If everything is breaking down because of this, she will have to take responsibility. From these screams and the unpleasant voice, she had a strong and sharp headache. The lady simply closed her eyes because it was impossible to look at him anymore. While he begs to tell her that it's a joke, and she just laughed at him, Callian quietly approached them, which means that Leticia is saved, who will get what they deserve. At first, he politely enough said that he would be grateful if he would let go of his fiancée's hand right now. The guy pretended as if he hadn't heard anything. But it was a big mistake, and now he will understand it. I don't have the strength to hold on any longer. I had to talk a little differently, grab his hand and speak in direct words, because apparently no one here understands the good way. Callian himself pushed the man away and said that next time he would not be so kind. This was a real warning. One might think that the guilty one would start apologizing and understand that he was wrong. But he began to be indignant that even if it was his lordship in front of him, This was too much for a first meeting, and since this was their family's business, it seemed to him that he had the right to deal with the girl as he saw fit. Kalian responded to this by saying that anyone like him knew the situation of this family better than him, so one could argue with him. And after that, he asked if the young gentleman really didn't know that her fiancé was cheating on her. After that, the guy started asking if he really didn't hear right. He had never heard anything like that, and asked Leticia to explain everything immediately. He thought that there were no secrets between them, although it was very naive. In fact, it was something like this. Every time she tried to tell the truth or talked about her problems, he covered his ears and did not delve into the essence of the conversation. Meanwhile, the lady says that he cannot worry. The break in the engagement will not affect their affairs. He couldn't hold back again, grabbed her hand, and asked what business had to do with it, since he was talking to her about something else. Not only does he disrespect the girl, but he also allows himself to push her down the stairs in front of her fiancé. Naturally, she couldn't resist. She simply didn't have enough strength for it. At such moments, the guy sometimes does not believe his eyes. He very often tries to restrain himself and talk to people politely. But this is further proof that most people simply do not appreciate this, and they need to be treated exactly the opposite, or rather, exactly the same way that they allow themselves. At the very last moment, he managed to help and prevent her from hitting the floor. I just had to sacrifice myself a little. The guy hit his back, but the windows landed almost painlessly. I was just a little scared. She had already resigned herself to the fact that something terrible would happen. But thanks to the groom, everything turned out in the best possible way. He acted like a real man. And now she does not regret that she agreed to help him. It is very pleasant and calm to be around such a person. It's very strange. But when everything looked normal, she began to lose her sight. Everything around became cloudy. At least her hearing remained fine. At first, she thought that the light in the hallway went out, but in fact, nothing like that happened. Maybe she hit her head hard. That's why she feels like this now. The main thing is that everything turns out well, but the girl was very scared, and now thinks that it will always be like this. It's really funny to watch how that man started to go down to them and acted as if he came to help, not to laugh. He even dared to ask if she had fallen because he had lightly touched her. Although everyone saw perfectly well how it really was, he could only deceive himself. After the way he treated her, she thought she had the right to push him away from her, but he even dared to be indignant. The guy asks what right she has to hit him, even though she barely touched him. Suddenly the lady asks him if he has ever heard of a spice called tetrad. He says he heard something about it, but he doesn't quite understand why she brought it up so abruptly. And then she tells me that Patrick wanted to use her against her if he got the trading rights. And that's the reason why she's going to break off the engagement. And as soon as possible. The girl asks what he can say about this, and hints that it would be nice for someone to apologize to her if he has any conscience at all. At that moment, Kalian asked her to stop. He decided to stop family quarrels. They can talk about this at any other time, but now it's time to rest. Especially since everyone had a very good day, he doesn't want to waste time on some unpleasant things. Because it won't change anything anyway. Leticia felt very awkward when she remembered that he had saved her again, and he replied with a smile that she didn't owe him anything for that, and if she offered, he simply wouldn't listen to her. She felt ashamed that she was not used to basic politeness from other people, especially since he was a man who could not act differently, to which he said that he was fine, so she should take care of herself first. After which, he put his arm around her slightly to make her feel more comfortable. Then he took her in his arms. And then he thought that everything was somehow happening by itself. He enjoyed looking after her, especially when she didn't expect it and appreciated it, and not like most other girls. After some time, she asked him to put her on the floor because she can walk on her own, but he doesn't agree because it's better for her to stay in his arms, so as not to overload her legs, especially since she can hardly see anything, and if something happens to her again, then he will be with her constantly, whether she likes it or not. Here they are already on the street. They go outside the territory, and the guy understands that he will have to talk to someone again. Those two tried to stop them and offered to stay the night, but he had other plans, so it was impossible. Although if there were no plans, he still wouldn't have stayed here. The guy asked to keep quiet. He wants to quietly return to the mansion so that no one tries to block his way. The assistants immediately realized that they needed to act very quickly, and no longer tried to suggest that he be here. The gentleman made sure in advance whether his carriage would be able to cover a long distance. and the assistant replied that since it would not go through the forest, it was quite possible. While one is busy with the carriage, the other one won't stand still either. He is ordered to go to the estate of Count Est for the family doctor. There is a small problem. He may not be allowed into this mansion, so the assistant warned about this in advance and offered to come up with something. Callian gave him some kind of note that would serve as a so-called pass, and the guy was already thinking that everything would be very difficult and this matter would not be resolved so quickly. He promised to do everything in the best possible way and in the shortest possible time. And in the meantime, the carriage was already ready. You can finally go out, warm up, and not freeze on the street, because a little more and the lady will get sick. The Archduke still doesn't let Leticia out of his arms, although she can sit and lie here as she pleases without any problems. He just wants to have complete control over her. After some time, he began to insist that she take painkillers, because without them, the symptoms would last longer and get worse. In this regard, she trusts him completely and listens to him unquestioningly, because she understands that he wants the best. The only problem is that she is afraid of tasteless medicines. They are usually very bitter and hard to swallow. She did not have time to finish this sentence. He had already figured out how to solve the problem and make it so that it would be the most delicious pill in her life. He quietly opened the jar, put the medicine in himself, and while she was not looking, he began to approach so that the medicine would pass to her. He does everything very skillfully, and the girl does not suspect that these touches will bring her much more benefit than she thinks. Once again, the guy simply asked her to trust him, and he himself is not worried about how she will react to this. The lady probably thinks he wants to fix her hair or something like that, but now something is going to happen that she is not ready for. Taking advantage of the opportunity, while she is not looking at him, the guy looks at her more closely to see every feature of her beautiful face and remember it for longer. And then she addresses him as His Grace, the Archduke, and he immediately asked her not to call him that anymore, because now he is only her husband and doesn't want to hear anything else from her. Night came. Callian could have assigned one of the servants to look after her, but he still does all this himself, not because he needs to, but because he wants to. He likes to feel that she is better with him. She feels more comfortable, and so they become closer, slowly, but still. For now, he is doing the best he can, controlling as much as he can, and not at all because he wants to seem better in her eyes. Finally, he managed to persuade her to invite a doctor. Now he has examined the patient and can give a verdict. When the gentleman asked the question, the doctor reacted strangely to it for some reason, as if he was afraid of saying something wrong, and he was thinking to himself what was going on here. It was like this. A few days ago, he received a parcel from an unknown sender. Inside was a medical book he had never seen or heard of before, and thanks to it, the man found a clue to the treatment of the lady's illness. He is almost certain that whoever sent this book is most likely the Archduke, and he probably wants it to remain a secret. The doctor came up with something to say, namely that apart from a slight abrasion, there were no serious injuries. Just that Kallianu would like to know why his fiancée was constantly losing consciousness. There must be some explanation for this. The doctor believes that this is most likely due to the disease that the lady has suffered from almost her entire life. And then he takes out of his jacket that very note that had been bothering him all this time, after which he asks if he understands correctly that it was his lordship who sent the book about her illness. The guy explains that this is true. He just thought that the man would be able to figure out how to treat it, but the doctor doesn't know anything and wants to understand how the gentleman knows about this disease. Unfortunately, he has no knowledge. He couldn't even understand the cause of the disease, and he regrets that there were some hopes for him, but he can't help in any way yet. Kallian thought for a moment and asked since when the man is the personal doctor of the Esta family, because perhaps the answer could be very useful and open your eyes to many things. The doctor doesn't remember exactly, but it must have been more than 20 years. And now he is especially ashamed that he doesn't know all the information about one of this family. And also, judging from his answer, the guy assumed that it meant the doctor treated the girl after her carriage accident. He kept silent, but thought to himself that perhaps the man was hiding something and pretending to know less than he actually did. The doctor says that in that accident, the girl seriously injured her head, and he treated her with magic stones. But for some reason, he gets very nervous. After some time, they came to the conclusion that it was possible that the treatment was the cause of the current problem. Probably the magic of the stones met with a blood clot in her brain and caused a blockage. This is something he was able to discover only after carefully studying her past, after his return. With his experience, even this information will be enough to find a cure faster. The doctor looks very worried. He begs to believe that he only wanted to save the lady and he never had bad intentions towards her. To which the guy said that it was the best decision then, and he does not blame him for anything. But one cannot deny the fact that, be that as it may, part of the responsibility still lies with him. Callian thought very quickly about how best to do it, and in the end decided to give the doctor exactly 1 year. During this time, the man must find a medicine that will cure his bride and rid everyone around of all problems. Because if she is healthy, everyone will be happy. The next day has come. I would like her health to be the same as this clear sky. But they are all slowly and surely moving towards it. The girl tries not to think about anything bad, but so much has happened lately that it is impossible to clear your mind and not worry about anything. After so much time, she is already tired of sitting and lying in one place. She wants to fully enjoy life, or at least see what is happening around her. It seems that life is hardening her, throwing up all sorts of trials and tribulations. Her health and body can barely cope with it, but since she has lived in this mode her whole life, she doesn't really feel a difference when she gets a little better or a little worse. This time she lay unconscious all night, and now she wonders how long it could have lasted. She remembered that the last time she talked to his mortality and began to wait for him to return to her. It goes without saying that, in order not to upset her, he won't tell her everything or the worst part. Somehow, Leticia felt that this was not her room. But was the girl really going to leave here without even seeing which way the exit was? She found a pair of shoes near the bed and started putting them on. But she didn't think that it would be better if she went barefoot. It would be safer. While she is already leaving the room, 2 assistants are standing behind the door. They are thinking about what is best, to wait here or to go in anyway, because there is a risk of losing their job or even worse, getting punished. They try to talk quietly to each other. They are most worried about the fact that she sleeps too long, so they want to check if everything is okay with her. They were so engrossed in their argument that they didn't notice how she opened the door and listened to them talking. She managed to recognize from his voice that it was the same guy she had bumped into in the forest yesterday. He smiled and replied that she had guessed correctly and asked her to call him simply by his first name. By the way, his name is Pavel. Since she had at least met someone, she began to ask where she was now. And when she found out that this was the city mansion of the Archduke, who had carried her here in his arms, she was very confused because she didn't even know whether to be happy or embarrassed. Leticia was covering her face with this object at that moment, and suddenly, Pavel asks why the young ladies have his master's notebook, and she says that she found it under the bed. In this case, the assistant asked to give the notebook. He will personally return it to the master as soon as he sees him, but she says that everything is fine. Especially since she would like to do it herself, she just has something to talk to him about. She needs any opportunity to meet him in person as soon as possible. And under the pretext of returning the notebook, everything can be done much faster. As far as the guy remembers, he is probably in the training yard now, so he offered her to follow him. He will bring her to him. It was very easy to find him. The servants know their master's schedule almost perfectly, so they can easily not see him. Guess where he might be. Pavel greeted him and said that at the lady's request, he brought her here, as she had something to talk about and something she wanted to give away. Kalyan asks what brought her here, and most importantly how she feels. She thanks him for his concern, and says that everything is not as bad as she expected. Then she wanted to say that she had something for him, and suddenly she noticed something that really confused her. His arm is bandaged in the shoulder area, which means he had a serious injury. Naturally, she wants to know at least something about it. The first thought she had was that it was all because of her. He could have hit his shoulder hard when he caught her, but like a real man, he asked me to worry and convinced me that he was okay. His hand only looks so scary, but in reality, everything is fine. Leticia is very happy that he can at least move and that nothing hurts, but she herself can't boast about it. His situation is much sadder. She can't even get to the room on her own in this state, although she would really like to. Kalyan suddenly thought that if he pretended a little, as if it was hard to move his hand, then she would take care of him, even when it was not necessary. Even though he just said that everything is fine, he is already asking her to support him while he walks, although she is not in a condition to help anyone when she herself can't really move. It's a bit funny. Everything was different just now, and now he's pretending like he can't move. The guy is exaggerating a lot. She will soon figure it out. But for now, everything is going according to plan. He wasn't even afraid to say that his hand hurt so much as if he was dying. It was too much. But he took the risk. It's not clear yet what Leticia thinks about this. For now, she looks like she feels sorry for him and doesn't see the situation from the outside. And then she comes up to him, touches him, and says that now it's her turn to help him. And that's exactly what he wanted to hear from her. His happiness knows no bounds. She feels that marrying him is not enough, and she should do much more. Since she decided so herself, then naturally he is not against it. The guy is only glad, so he told her, and while she was here, she decided to ask the main question that still torments her. What is the reason that he asked her to play the role of the bride? Because there are plenty of other girls around who would be happy to be in this place. To which he said that everything was very simple. All because in her gaze, there was the same expression as in his. He then thought that most likely she was in a similar situation, and they were made for each other. These were very beautiful words. Only now they are superfluous. Now they can communicate only with looks, which say much more than the longest sentences. The silence lasted more than 5 minutes, after which many things became clearer to both of them, and it is not surprising. And then he thought that in any case, since everything turned out this way, she should use him too. Leticia doesn't quite understand what he's saying, so I had to explain that he can be much more useful than he seems, and that she can safely ask him for anything. At the very least, he can easily provide her with shelter instead of the Count's estate. She should be calmer there. He thinks that this is the best offer he could make her. But the lady is not entirely happy. She said that he doesn't have to help her with any problems when she doesn't ask for it. She didn't mean to go that far. She likes to help more than to receive help. That way she will feel indebted, even though she knows it's not normal. Then she decided to leave so as not to feel awkward. Although if it weren't for this conversation, she would have happily stayed. When her hand touched the door, he touched it and asked her to think seriously about his proposal. Because if she really becomes his wife, she will be able to escape from this place and be free. The North is also good for living in its own way. He sincerely advises to think about it carefully, so that later you will not regret anything. A few days later, Leticia begins to adjust to her new life, and she still has the thought in her head that she does not fully understand what she will have to do while being married, because it is probably not enough to just agree to it. There must be some responsibilities or rules. Even though he told her that nothing like that would happen, the fact itself is important to him, but she still thinks about it every night and every morning. Even though she has already been through a failed relationship, she must be afraid that everything will be the same. But she is confident. If the Archduke becomes her husband, everything will not be as bad as in the past experience. He is at least a polite person and knows how to behave with girls even in quarrels, when everyone wants to show character. She already wants to get closer to putting on a dress and getting married. She feels inside that this is the right choice, which she will never regret, at least not as much as last time. Everything was calm and wonderful, when suddenly the assistant bursts in and screams at the whole room that something bad has happened. She only made the situation worse with her screaming. Leticia didn't know what happened, but was already afraid to listen to her. The girl asks what's wrong, asks her not to panic and just say what happened. She clenches her hands into fists, closes her eyes, and screams that His Highness the Archduke is here. The girl knew that he would arrive soon, but she didn't think that it would happen so quickly. Meanwhile, Elena asks to hurry up and not to fidget, because she has to do her makeup, hair, and choose an image. And then they are told that he is already too close. The assistant is nervous and takes everything personally, and the lady is absolutely calm because she is ready to appear in front of him, even in this form. She does not see any problem in this because the guy must understand that she just woke up and could not be prepared for his arrival in advance. Leticia asked Elena to calm down, explained that there was no reason to panic because she should be more afraid than anyone else. The lady had just approached the door. He had already opened it first. Apparently, he was in such a hurry to see her that he didn't even ask if he could come in. The first thing he told her was that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, hinting that he had already missed her. Then he apologized if it was inconvenient for her to get ready at such a pace, and she said that there was no problem with that. She is the first girl who is not afraid to be in front of someone without makeup and talk to someone literally a minute after waking up. It's very convenient. Now he will know that he doesn't have to warn her and can come at any time when he wants to see her. Today is the very day when she should tell him about her decision. Although she already has an answer, but she still worries about him, as if she is afraid of upsetting him and is going to refuse. One might think that she would simply agree, but the girl decided to be honest with him until the end. She said directly that the thing is that she has a serious illness, and it is unlikely that she will live until the end of the contract, no matter how terrible it sounds. So if everything suits him, and it suits him to be with her for only a while, then she signs the contract right now, without any problems. He smiled at first, but then he realized that he couldn't just be there without helping and participating in her problems. He decided for himself that he would come up with something, and he told her that everything suited him, after which she said that in that case she would like, so that they could draw up a formal contract, with a clause that it would be terminated automatically after exactly 1 year. He reacted to this somehow, strangely, as if he was agreeing to all her conditions for now, but then he would start to wriggle out of it, and everything would actually happen differently. He begins to play along with her tempo, and in the meantime asks if this is all she needs from him. Leticia wanted to talk about the castle and her illness, and he immediately promised that he would not tell anyone about it. She could not worry about it at all. Then she had a question. Is there nothing else that his lordship wants from her? He just smiled at this and said that he had the most important condition in addition to everything discussed above. He never wants to hear her call him Your Highness or anything like that again. He will be seriously offended by it. She didn't expect this from him. She was already expecting to hear something serious, but this is such a trifle that it sounds like a joke. She started asking how this was possible. She couldn't address his lordship by name, and he said that if that was the case, then he didn't need this contract. The girl didn't think it was that serious for him, but if so, she was ready to get used to it and learn to call him by name. Then she said his name, after which the guy seemed to melt before his eyes. It was especially pleasant for him to hear this from her. He is very glad that she agreed, and from that moment on, asked to call him only that way and nothing else. Now that the contract is signed, we can head north, which means that the most interesting part begins today. She was given some time to collect all her things, but there were so few of them that the groom thought it was only one of her 10 bags. Usually ladies, when they move somewhere, have a lot of huge suitcases with them, which are hard to fit into one carriage, but she can easily move like this light, with only the most necessary things. He thinks that it is too modest, and he decided to surprise her later by slightly increasing her wardrobe, because she, as his future wife, should have an appropriate clothing collection. At this wonderful moment, she has memories from the past, when she was periodically told the same thing, asked not to be mistaken, because in that house there is nothing that belongs to her. That is why she has practically nothing. She is about to wrap her bag back up so she can drag it to the carriage herself. But the guy doesn't let her and understands that he still has a lot to teach her. That he took her bag. This is an elementary rule of etiquette. Then he asks her to look back. Leticia did not notice this, but he saw that some people would miss her very much. The assistant who was helping her and looking after her all the time was especially upset. She even had tears of sadness that cannot be described in words. It is even hard for her to approach her, because it will only get worse. And she is also offended that the girl had not said anything before that she was going to, or even thinking about moving. Elena is no longer holding back, and the lady asks for forgiveness for how everything turned out, and also explains that she herself did not know anything about this a couple of days ago. The lady thanked Elena for everything she did for her. She sincerely believes that they will see each other again someday. At least they will try to do everything to make it happen. The assistant wants to say a lot right now, but she can't because she has a lump in her throat, and she doesn't want to make everyone else wait while they speak. After some time, Philip appears. For the gentleman, it was not a surprise, but his bride was surprised. She, of course, is not against seeing him. She just did not think that he would appear here. The guy forgot that he didn't say anything about it. Philip will go with them. It will be better that way. The girl thought that they would be just the two of them, but the plan changed a little, although she doesn't mind. She just has a very hard time dealing with situations where some surprises appear for her, or things happen that she was not prepared for. After some time, she asks if he told her father about this, because he should also know what is happening. He promised to do it eventually, but now it seems to him that it is better to keep the fact that they are taking Philip as part of her devotee a secret. Leticia doesn't quite know what to think about this, but she still completely trusts her future husband because she believes that he knows better what will be best for both of them. Meanwhile, Callian called her his wife with a smile and asked her to give him her hand, which would symbolize her consent to live with him for this time. This is a very important step for her, but even now she doubts less than when she got married for the first time. Before that, she thought that they would travel by carriage, but as it turned out, Callian had prepared a surprise for her so that she would remember the move for the rest of her life. It will be something special. They will go through the portal, and in a moment, they will find themselves where they will live together. Leticia feels that even if this marriage is not real, she will be happy in it, and that is the most important thing. And in the meantime, the Emperor's mother only found out that he had given the Archduke a scroll of movement that could create portals, came to his office, and began to be indignant at how he could make such a decision without her. Supposedly, she had the right to know about this in advance, and if she had known, she would not have allowed him to do this. And the woman also reminded him how she had told him 1,000 times that he should never, under any circumstances, give that guy anything, because he didn't deserve anything. The Emperor thinks that there is nothing wrong with this, because it is just one piece of advice from moving, and they will not become poorer from it. Mother says to this that it is worth starting to give in, and he will get used to expecting more, and also thinks that perhaps later he may even covet the throne. His Majesty doesn't want to hear anything about it. He perceives it as an exaggeration. He just wanted to congratulate his younger brother on his marriage, nothing more. The guy reminded that the name that is most often heard in high society now is the name of Callian. Those who have seen him personally at receptions admire him endlessly, and he is one of them. But the woman believes that now is not the time to do nothing. She even hinted at how much she has invested to tarnish his reputation, and her son just goes and gives him expensive gifts. The Emperor gets very angry when she starts talking about this. He never understood how one can be such an evil person and plot something against people who have done nothing bad to anyone, or, moreover, are relatives. And then the woman, without thinking, asks her son if he by any chance knows how many wells there are in the empire. It sounded so strange that the guy couldn't believe his ears. But just in case, he asked if he had misheard what she had just asked him about the well right after they had discussed his brother. She started to smile and said that there is nothing stronger than the fear of bad public opinion. She definitely heard that poisonous spices got into the Godwin's house, but it's not clear yet what that has to do with it. He started saying that if she needed anything, he could help, but she refused. Supposedly, it would be better if she figured everything out herself. The guy feels that she is up to something. He will definitely find out about it and will not let her finish the job, especially if it can harm someone. He pretended as if he wasn't going to interfere in any of her affairs. Let her think that's the case, but in reality, he would be keeping an eye on her. Meanwhile, those two are already there. The guy suggests opening his eyes, because the girl closed them on purpose to make it even more interesting to see where he took her. And where will she live in the near future? Unless, of course, nothing changes, and they don't break up ahead of time. And anything can happen. Before this, she was almost completely sure that nothing would change much. It would be some kind of luxurious mansion. But in reality, everything turned out completely differently. She was not ready for this and does not yet know how to react. They found themselves in nature. It's cold here, winter, and he didn't say a word about it. Apparently, he wanted to make a real surprise, as expected, and he succeeded. She almost cries with happiness. She even likes the air here. It is cleaner, smells nice, and everything around is like a fairy tale. He is also very glad that she likes it, although he thought that she would run in at the first sight of this grayness, as he calls this area. She tells him that, in general, everything can be looked at differently. Someone can see the grayness, and someone can see nature, which some do not see in their entire lives. Unlike most people who like populated areas, she actually likes this kind of place. It is fascinating and calming. Every time he thinks he will disappoint her, the girl rejoices like a child. She even forgot to look at him. She likes everything around here so much. She likes this new life. There is a special atmosphere here that she wants to feel to the fullest. As soon as they saw that the owner had returned, everyone immediately lined up in their places because he had been gone for a long time, and for everyone, this was a very long-awaited event. Seeing him on the horizon is like a holiday for everyone who serves him, and that is worth a lot, especially if he does not return alone. Some are already interested to see this lady, about whom the gentleman said nothing. She is very uncomfortable at the same time that everyone is looking at them, and she is in his arms, like some kind of princess. She does not want everyone to think that she is arrogant, because that is not true. He says to this, if she goes on foot, she will immediately get frostbite, and no one needs that. And no, Your Highness, but Callian, the first time he will forgive her, but the next time he won't forgive her so easily. But she still thinks that people will think only one thing about her, that she is so weak and incapable of anything that she can't even walk on her own. He immediately said that the only thing they can think looking at them now is that she is a wife whom he loves immensely. That's why they don't allow her to walk on her feet. She asked him not to joke like that anymore. These words made her too uncomfortable. Until she got used to the new life, it was better to be careful. With every step they take as they get closer to the estate, there are more and more people, and she is afraid to look in their direction so as not to see dissatisfied faces. This is her greatest fear. Only in this way, she will not know how they reacted to her here. She even suggested that he use a magic scroll to immediately appear in the room without passing by people. Maybe he could do it, but magic is limited inside the castle walls, so it's better not to even try. Otherwise, he'll just waste his energy on it. It's all because of that clock tower. If it wasn't there, they would have done the same. But unfortunately, it's here, so nothing will work. Looking at her, she had a completely logical question. What is it about her that magic doesn't work near her? He was almost sure that at least someone should know about it. It was a joke tower, after all. The only thing she knows about it is that it is some ancient kingdom founded by time wizards. Long ago, when the wizards got out of control, all their magical power was sucked into this tower, and everything connected to the joke disappeared, leaving only the tower. This means that because of the magic and the tower, you can't use scrolls. The magic is distorted near a powerful source of power. He didn't expect that she was so well-versed in magic, to which the girl replied that she just accidentally read about it in a book. Then he asked if she really likes reading. She says that before, when she had a lot of time, she devoted every second to it, so she could relax and be alone with her thoughts, because she had no other way. Leticia has already been taken to her room. It is so big that at first the girl confused it with the living room. The room is so nice that she even feels awkward being here. She was expecting something much smaller. Even if she completely loses her sight, she will be able to move around holding on to this. Everything is thought out to the smallest detail, as if it were made for her. Leticia noticed out of the corner of her eye how strangely the assistant who was assigned to accompany the guest, or rather, the new mistress of this house, was looking at her. The assistant is clearly unhappy with her appearance and doesn't even hide it. It's literally written on her face. It's understandable that some people here may not like her, but she's used to this atmosphere, and it doesn't particularly frighten her. The main thing is that everything is okay with most of the servants, and everything else is not important. The girl simply said that she does not need help, so the assistant can be free. She reacted strangely, didn't say a word, although she should have shown at least a drop of politeness and wished him a good day. It wasn't the most pleasant acquaintance, but the girl didn't expect anything more, so everything is fine. Having looked at the room completely from beginning to end, she noticed another entrance. It seemed to be her personal bathroom, which she did not even notice at first. If this is what she thought, then this is already an indescribable luxury that she could only dream of before. Naturally, Leticia immediately decided to take advantage of all the benefits of her room. Especially after everything she had been through lately, this was what she needed, what she had been missing. Then she accidentally noticed some door that was closed all the time, and in the end, she didn't pay much attention to it. The lady thought that there was probably nothing important there, otherwise she would have been warned about it. Everything was fine. She was enjoying the hot water, and then suddenly a sound was heard, and only after a while the girl realizes that it was the voice of the Archduke. She doesn't understand how this is possible. Is he really somewhere here? Even though she can't see him and there is no place where he could hide? There is only one explanation for all this. Apparently, that door leads to his office or bedroom. She instantly decided to leave here and get dressed before he came in at the wrong time. It would be too inconvenient. Leticia thought how good it was that she heard his voice almost immediately. Although that same door opened a second later, it turns out that it didn't really help her. Suddenly, he looks up, not expecting to see anything like that, and at that moment, Leticia is standing in front of him. Judging by his reaction, she is wearing a minimum of clothes. Meanwhile, the same assistant that Leticia had freed, for some reason decided to talk to the butler. She ran to him so fast as if it was something very important. He only saw her, immediately asked why she was here and not with the lady. She doesn't even know where to start. She's very nervous. She can't say 2 words, and she's shaking all over. In order not to waste time, she quickly wrote down everything she wanted to say on a piece of paper, namely, that it seemed that she had offended her, and perhaps because of an unpleasant acquaintance, the girl would hate the entire North. She probably already feels that there is a lot missing here, so she will definitely be disappointed, and she really wouldn't want that. One of the maids heard that they were discussing something here, came up at the most inopportune moment, and started asking what was going on here, as if she didn't understand that if they wanted to tell her something, they would have done so. Then she told them in a nutshell that she was worried, that she might have created a not very good first impression of herself, and if it was possible, she would like to fix it. But she doesn't understand how yet. Meanwhile, the lady, as quickly as she could, returned to the water so as not to look for clothes all over the room, hid and smiled as if nothing had happened, while inside she was so worried that words cannot describe. At that moment, the assistant approached the gentleman to ask why he stopped and did not go further. The guy immediately realized that he could see someone extra and immediately closed the door in front of him. Then he asked me to leave and promised that he would explain everything later, if, of course, he could find the right words. The guy doesn't understand anything. In any case, he has no choice. He had to obey and go about his business. It turns out that Callian really didn't know that there was already someone here. That's why he came here so boldly, for which he is now very ashamed. He is afraid that he could have scared her and is ready to apologize. She hid even more in the bathtub because she thought that he would see everything through the water anyway, although in fact, he was deliberately looking in your direction as little as possible so as not to embarrass you. It turns out that in this place, the rooms of the husband and wife are connected through the bathroom. The servants just didn't explain it properly. While they weren't talking, the water had cooled down a lot. He suggested asking someone to prepare the bath again. And at that moment, she forgot that she was naked, slightly emerged, thus slightly more was visible than necessary. It's good that she didn't notice it, and he, for his part, quickly turned away. Then he suggested putting on a robe. It would be more comfortable for everyone, and it was a great solution. Now she tells him that he should turn away so that she can put on this robe. But for some reason, he didn't think of it right away. Naturally, he agreed. She quickly threw on a robe, and after that, she felt much better. Because all this time, there was a lot of tension inside. They didn't have any plans to talk today, so she asked if she could go back to her room. And he didn't keep her. I just wished her a good rest, and just in case I didn't turn around anyway, so that she would feel calmer. And then he begins to realize that he can't get the same picture out of his head that he accidentally saw a couple of minutes ago. It seemed to him that he had completely gone crazy. He felt terribly ashamed. He was not some kind of beast to think only about this, even though it happens naturally. Leticia is already in bed. She put on her night school clothes and is already getting ready for bed in her new room, to which she has already managed to get used to a little. She begins to remember today to understand whether she did and said everything correctly during this time, or maybe she should have acted differently in some situation. The lady was already thinking of hiding under the blanket, but someone knocked on the door. The first thing she thought was that it was probably some maid. The girl came to open the door, and behind her was her husband, who probably forgot to say something. Judging by his appearance, he just took a bath, but he just stands there and looks at her. So it's hard to understand how she can help him at such a time, especially after they already said goodbye. The guy apparently forgot to ask about it right away. He came back to ask how she was feeling about the room, whether she liked everything, or maybe something was missing. The girl says that everything is wonderful. The room is very nice, and she can hardly even imagine what could be better. And after that, he asked not to worry about the bathroom. She can use it whenever she wants, and he will use the one in the other room. There should be no more inconvenience in this regard. At this moment, the girl remembers that her hair is not dry. It is wet, and usually it is not appropriate to appear in front of respected people in such a state. She tried to hide it, but he immediately asks why she is doing this. Because it is beautiful in any condition. Then she looked at his hair and saw that it was completely wet, so she advised him to dry it quickly, because otherwise he could catch a cold. He complained that his arm hurt, so it was very inconvenient to do it himself. He just waits until they dry themselves. And since she asked, he already started hinting that she should help. Leticia, of course, is not against it. She will just feel awkward touching him, but otherwise there are no problems. She asked him to come closer, listened to what she was telling him, and began to wipe her head with a towel, which would help better than regular air. Time passed. It was time to leave, but the lady remembered that she had one more request for him, and he listened to her attentively. The thing is that she has been thinking about it for a long time. She really wants to learn to read Braille, even if now it seems to him that this is a stupid desire and it is easier to convince her than to help. It all started when her vision suddenly failed at a banquet. She was told that, unfortunately, as the disease progresses, this will happen more often and nothing can be done about it. She will just have to adapt. So Leticia thought it would be useful to learn it in advance so that she wouldn't have to do it in a hurry later. After some time, when the guy went about his business, he first of all called the assistant, explained the situation to him, and he immediately realized that he should look for someone who could help the lady learn Braille, and as quickly as possible. The guy heard that there was a librarian at the corner bookstore who knew Braille well, so he was the first person to go to. The gentleman asked if this librarian was a man, to which the assistant replied that he was, but he was an old man, already over 70. Kalyan suddenly says that the teacher is not needed. He has already found one, and the assistant does not understand how so quickly, because he only asked him about it. Kalyan replied that he would be this teacher, after which the assistant's face showed only bewilderment. The gentleman seriously says that he will teach her, and thinks that they will not find anyone better. But it is strange that at the very beginning he seemed not to think about it, and almost assigned his assistant to do a useless task. He would have spent a lot of time and effort on it. The next day had already arrived. The night had passed more or less calmly. The girl felt safe and roughly understood what awaited her next. Because before it had been the opposite, only questions and uncertainty about what to expect. One of the knights is already escorting her somewhere. She is walking behind and trying to keep up with him, because his stride is long, and for her, this is very unusual. She could, of course, say that she was uncomfortable, but she kept silent so as not to look too unhappy. Meanwhile, he asked how she slept, and she said that it was one of the best dreams in her life. Her bed is very soft, so it is impossible not to get a good night's sleep in it. Why, Leticia couldn't resist asking where they were going now, to which he said that he had ordered her to be taken to the office. He said that the preparation for learning Braille had already been completed. Judging from these words, the girl understood that the guy had probably seen her teacher, which meant he could tell what he was like. The assistant does not hide that he saw him, and the lady already hopes that he is not some kind of strict. It would be good if he was a pleasant and friendly person, easy to deal with. The guy thinks that this person won't be strict with her, so she can be calm about that. After some time, they came to the right office. He says that it is already possible to walk, and her heart is already pounding with worry that everything will go well, because a lot depends on it. Even though she was just told that there shouldn't be any problems, she's still worried because something could go wrong at any moment. Leticia opens the door with trembling hands, slowly enters the office, and has no idea yet who she will see there. When she first saw the silhouette, she still didn't understand anything. But when she looked closer, she saw a familiar face. It was very strange, and in the meantime the guy says that no one is going to eat her here, so she can safely walk closer. He said it as if he didn't understand how surprised she was, and that she expected to see someone else instead of him. Kalyan first asked her to sit down at the table. He would bring her some water. The lady drank it all in one go. Apparently she was very worried, and it is not surprising. Now it is clear why the assistant said that the teacher would treat her well. Just in case she had misunderstood everything, she asked why the teacher hadn't arrived yet, to which she received the answer that there was no need to wait for anyone. He was already there, right in front of her. She pretends as if she doesn't understand anything, says that it's just the two of them here and she doesn't notice anyone else. And he laughed at this, and then said in a serious voice that she understood everything correctly. Leticia is of course not against him being her teacher, but she was preparing for something a little different, so she needs some more time to realize everything. At first, everything was fine, but when she remembered how busy the other man was, she realized how burdensome it was for him, and asked him to find someone else, to which he said that he would be happy to. But in the north, no one else knows Braille better than him, so the choice is obvious. So, every day at this time, they will teach her one word, so in about a year she will master almost everything. The girl thought that a year sounded too long, and suggested increasing the number of words per day. But as she already knows, he is a bit busy, so it will be difficult for him personally. She immediately took it as an obvious lie, but there was nothing she could do to convince him otherwise. Suddenly, she thought that she could learn additional words without him, and asked to just give her a special book. He also responded to this by saying that it was very difficult, that it was a very valuable book for him, and that he could not lend it to him in any way. A couple of minutes passed, and here he says that if she helps him dry his hair again, like yesterday, he will increase the number of letters that they will learn together. The lady reminded that he had just refused this, and all he could say was that sometimes people change their minds, and that is normal. In the end, they somehow came to an agreement. And in the meantime, the girl gives him this and says that he should take it. The guy immediately recognized that it was Patrick's brooch. It was unclear to him why she was giving it to him. But the thing is that there is something written on it that might be useful to him. Patrick has an older brother named Peter. Unless something unusual happens, he will become the heir to the Duke. But Patrick is trying his best to take this place. Peter can't take Patrick lightly because of his reputation. The main thing is that it is Peter who manages the affairs of the ducal family. He is very interested in trade, so he bought up quite a few trading companies on the northern border in a short time. So if you use this brooch, on which Patrick's weak points are written, and make a deal with the young Duke, it will bring great benefit to the north. The guy thought that these words made sense, and then asked how she knew about the purchased trading companies and other things. Leticia admitted that all of the documents that the young Duke looked at when she came to the ducal residence. It was surprising to him that she immediately remembered something that she had seen only a couple of times. He himself would like to have such a good memory. Sometimes it is sorely lacking, and in general, it is nice for him to know that she is interested in business. It is very unexpected. In that case, he suggests to her, how about she try to make a deal with the young Duke? She doesn't understand how to arrange all this because she herself hasn't really gone out in public for so long. Callian explained it like this. She noticed something that he himself did not see, so everything is obvious. He is also not used to making deals, especially since, as is well known, Northerners are those who are famous for their ability to bargain. They are very far from this. He also mentioned that in any case, she shouldn't feel obligated. He's not going to force her, but if Leticia doesn't mind, he would advise her to try. Maybe it will be quite interesting. She tells him that she is not at all sure whether she can handle it, and she is also worried that he might suffer losses because of her, after which she received the answer that it doesn't matter. It's better to do as she pleases. He will accept any of her decisions. Moreover, no one will tell her anything here. She can make as many mistakes as she can, and she must remember that this is normal. He personally does not know anyone who succeeds the first time. As you know, only losers can call everyone around them losers. They only do what they try to stop someone on their way, and those who have achieved success understand how important support is and will never allow themselves to say something bad about someone who is wrong. In the end, she said that she thought she could cope if she helped Callian, and if that was her wish, then he suggested discussing it later. Meanwhile, since he had already received the tuition fee, he offered to start the lesson right then and there. First, you need to concentrate and remember the sensations in your fingertips well. When she said she was concentrated, they moved on to the next stage. The word they are learning today in the first lesson is ashurta. It means new beginning. The lesson ended. The guy decided to walk her to her room, but she thinks it wasn't necessary. Today the sunset is so beautiful that every time she passes by the window, she looks in, because it is impossible to pass by when you see such beauty. And through this window, you can also clearly see the clock on the tower, which looks special this time. At first, the girl didn't really notice anything, but then she wondered if they had walked. She clearly remembers that it was broken, and the hands did not move at all, although it may just seem that way to her. 4 days have already passed. Leticia, as they agreed, came to him on business. She knocked on the door, said who it was and why she had come, although he was definitely waiting for her, and there was no need to clarify. Callian said that the door was open and allowed them to pass. The lady came in and saw that he was talking to the assistant for the border patrol, who had become too sluggish. So at the end of the conversation, he asked to reorganize the troops and distribute everything anew. He promised that he would do everything immediately, and after that, the gentleman allowed him to leave. Before he left, the girl remembered that someone had left a basket in front of her room and decided to ask if he had accidentally left it. According to him, it was not he who did it, and the assistant had no idea who could have done it. First, he asked what basket she meant, and then, if necessary, he offered to find the person who left it, because he was not busy with anything and could allocate time for this, depending on how important everything was. Leticia was surprised that he was so quick to fulfill her request, which she had not even asked him for, but said that it was nothing. There would only be wildflowers and sweets. And then Callian grabbed her by the hand. The girl got scared and asked in a trembling voice what it meant. And he says that it is of course good that she gets along well with his subordinate. However, he would like her to pay a little more attention to him. Besides, since she is late, and because his hair is still wet, he is already freezing. The assistant thinks to himself how this man can say such a thing. He is used to fighting in icy water in the middle of winter, so it is funny to hear how he freezes from cold hair while being in a warm room. He even wanted to make fun of him, suggested calling a doctor, and the gentleman, without hinting, asked directly if he was still here. Then he ordered to leave immediately. He must have some business besides eavesdropping on other people's conversations. After this, the guy won't be able to stay calmly in the same place. He was forced to leave, although he didn't really want to. And when he found himself in the corridor, he said out loud that it seemed that he had been kicked out a lot lately, and too often. He hadn't even had time to walk down the corridor when he already heard another conversation, which of course he couldn't pass by. After all, no one was interested in listening to what the emperor and his wife were arguing about. She calls him an old man, and also insists that sky blue is more suitable for the lady. But it turns out that it is not the master and lady, but the maid and the butler. It's unclear how he could have confused their voices, but it doesn't matter. Meanwhile, the butler tells that, according to Mia, the lady prefers lemons and strawberries. That's why she likes yellow. Somehow, judging from this conversation, the guy understood that it was they who brought that very basket to the lady's door. He wasn't even afraid. He approached them and asked about it directly, because any information would be very valuable. It seems like they wouldn't want anyone to know whose idea it was, and the guy might ruin their plan. Because it's much more important to help Leticia than to cover for someone. Meanwhile, Kalyan is watching the girl and doesn't understand what she's doing, so he asks how to understand this. You can't really see her behind this huge blanket, and she reminded him that he said he was cold, so she thought he would be warmer under the blanket. He smiled slightly and called her unpredictable, and said it as if he even liked it. For the future, he advised her to call one of the servants in such cases, so as not to carry such things herself. The only problem is that she is not used to giving orders to servants. It feels somehow excessive, so in the end, he allowed her to do as she is more comfortable. But still, at least try to get used to the new life and opportunities. After all, people are at their workplace, and there is nothing wrong with asking them to do what they are obliged to do, especially since now she is the mistress of this castle and can do whatever she wants without thinking about whether anyone likes it or not. Leticia asks him when he thinks his arm will heal, and he takes it as if it's a hint that she's tired of him. She explains that this is absolutely not true. He simply misunderstood her, or she asked the question incorrectly. It's very simple. She thinks it makes him uncomfortable, and she also wants to know how he feels as often as possible, because his health can change several times a day, and he may not say anything about it. The next day came. Early in the morning, even the assistant came to see what was wrong with his hand, because it really was taking a long time to heal. The gentleman replies in a dissatisfied voice that nothing has healed yet, while bandaging his hand. This has become his daily routine, which has already become boring. All this is very strange, because during dawn for training, the assistant clearly saw how the Archduke took off the bandage, and then realized that he should not have said this, and said that he probably imagined it. Then we didn't talk about how Pavel was doing, unfortunately. Since he crossed the border, there has been no news about him. The guy came to the conclusion that it looked like he would have to go there himself, and preferably return before it started raining. The gentleman decided that it would be better to go together, but the assistant still insists that it would be better for him to be alone, because it would start raining soon, and he would not like the gentleman to experience any trouble or inconvenience when it can be avoided. The gentleman asked him to remove that expression on his face, as if he was talking to a child who couldn't decide anything on his own without adults. He can't let Leticia's things get wet and ruined, so his decision will remain unchanged. A little later, the guy caught himself thinking that lately he had been doing things that were completely out of character for him. On the way, Leticia saw him. The girl came up to ask where he was going, because she was just on her way to his office. He is forced to inform that today's lesson will have to be postponed, and in the meantime, she noticed that he himself listened to his hair and did not tell her anything about it. She had to answer that if so, then she did not mind, although inside she felt that something was wrong here. Finally, she only asked him to be careful and warned him about the bad weather that everyone was talking about. When he had just moved a meter away from her, literally a second later, he seemed to change his mind and began to grab her hand. For some reason, he needed to clarify whether she would be here, and she answered with a surprised face that it seemed like she wasn't planning on going anywhere. Then he grabbed his face, closed his eyes, and explained that he didn't mean it that way. He clearly felt a little ashamed. After that, he promised that he would try to come back earlier and still give her a lesson, because I understand that they are very important to her. She replied that she understood everything and would be happy to wait for him as long as necessary. It was very nice for him to hear it. Although there was nothing special in this answer, it sounded special from her. Then she also took him gently by the hand and made it clear that he could not worry. She understood him perfectly, because in his place, any person before an important trip would be lost in his thoughts and words. From the outside, it looked very cute. This is exactly what he needed to hear from her right here and now. Then she wished him all the best, smiled, and sincerely began to hope that there would be a lesson today. The girl doubts very much that when he arrives, he will have the strength for anything. But she must hope until the very end, especially since he promised. Right after Kalyan left, she stayed on the same floor as promised to wait for him. Leticia wondered why he suddenly behaved like that. She kept looking at him all the time and noticed that he was somehow overly excited. This really bothers her, and the sounds of the rain seemed to make the situation worse and give her anxious thoughts. In such weather, it is very good to relax at home, when nothing is happening and everything is fine. But now everything is a little different. Besides, if you think about it, she had never been outside the castle, so she started to think, why not go out for at least 5 minutes to get some air and look around, since she didn't have anything else to do? As soon as the girl looked to the side, she noticed Mia, who just happened to be nearby, and it was so quiet that Leticia didn't notice how she ended up there. Leticia thought that she had been seeing this particular maid too often lately, although perhaps it was a coincidence or her imagination. The lady asked what she was doing there, and then saw that the girl was wiping dust and stopped waiting for an answer to her question. A minute later, the lady hinted that it was time for someone to go wash up. It sounded like a hint that she shouldn't be watching her here. The assistant understood everything right away. She didn't have to hint twice. She was just a little upset. Apparently, she didn't have time to clean up. Or maybe she was peeping and was upset that she was noticed. And next time, if this happens, questions may arise. Then she looked to the side to distract herself with something and saw a shelf with books that could help her with this. There are a lot of them there, enough to last a long time. The only question is whether it is more interesting than walking on the street. At first, it seemed to her that there were a lot of books, but if you look closely, there is simply a huge darkness of them. There are even children's books here. It's just a pity she's not interested in them, but since she has a lot of time, she opened one of them. It's surprising that they are all from the same author and seem to be quite new. This can be seen from the beautiful drawings that have not yet been erased. In this book, the main character is a pink rabbit. Who would have thought that Kalyan loves such cute things? Leticia was too interested in this book. She even sat down on the floor in the corner so that she wouldn't be noticed. Especially with this book. She thinks that nothing will happen if she reads just one children's book. It can't be that she likes them so much that she will continue to be a fan of them. Meanwhile, in the middle of the forest, the Archduke's carriage stops. It seems something has happened. One of the assistants says it's not that big of a problem, but something happened and they can't move on. It turns out that this is not the Emperor's carriage, but all his other assistants, who do not understand why the master is lagging behind so much, although he should have been riding ahead. After a while, my lord finally showed up. Everyone started asking if everything was okay, and he asked them not to think about him, not to fuss, and, if possible, to think only about themselves. He doesn't want everyone to stop because of him, and if everyone thinks about him, then they are unlikely to return quickly. For him, rain is not just a weather condition. The day his brother died, the day Leticia ran away, every time he lost something dear, it always rained. The assistant once again confirmed for himself that he shouldn't have listened to the gentleman. He should have set out on the road himself, and now he very persistently asks the gentleman to return to the shelter. Cassian is not going to listen to anyone. He asked him not to stop and warned that if he has to repeat it again, everyone who does not listen to him will be punished. And after some time, he decided to return to the castle right now, because if he doesn't give a lesson to Leticia, he'll have to apologize for a long time. And the assistant warns that during the rain, the anxiety may worsen, and there will be no one around, and this is the worst scenario that can be imagined. But what's more important is that he wants to make sure she's still in the castle, and he already regrets leaving her alone and unattended. Kalyan made it clear that if he heard even a hint that he had gotten carried away again and not listened to anyone, that person would be fired. Meanwhile, the butler and the maid ask Mia if she has found the mistress during this time, because they have checked everything thoroughly and still can't see or hear her anywhere. The only thing everyone saw the last time was her leaving the office, and in such a downpour, no one can even imagine where she could have gone. Everyone is in a panic because they need to find her before the master returns. And when that will happen, no one knows. Besides, this morning the girl said something about wanting to go outside, and since she doesn't know the area, she could get lost. Just when they were completely confused, The door opened, and the Archduke entered, who was about to ask where Leticia was now, and for the slightest silence, everyone would be punished. Everyone's body was shaking. No one had been so worried for a long time. This is the moment that you can't imagine anything worse. First, the guy turned to the butler, and he lost the gift of speech. He doesn't really know what to say to this. At the same time, he is afraid to remain silent. As expected, he could not lie. He answered as it was, that they had not seen her since his lordship left. This is exactly what he was afraid to hear the most. His head hurt a little, and his vision became blurred. But the girl promised that she would wait. It was absolutely unclear to him how to understand this. She couldn't do this to him. Killian is trying very hard to believe that this is some kind of mistake, and is trying his best to contain his aggression. Words cannot describe how he feels now. He is overcome by the same feelings that he experienced a long time ago. They are literally destroying him from the inside. At that terrible moment, when he hated the whole world, a miracle happened. He heard the sweetest voice, which seemed to dispel all the problems in an instant. Leticia showed up. You can see how worried she was that something would happen to him, and now she's glad that everything is fine. The guy turns around and doesn't believe his eyes. For him, it's some kind of miracle. He would rather believe that it seemed to him than that she is really standing right in front of him. It turns out that there is nothing to be afraid of. There are no more problems. But you still need to try to calm yourself down. He ran to hug her so fast that less than a second passed, and of course, she was very pleased. The lady felt like he was waiting for the moment to see her, although in reality, she was waiting for him no less. He says with tears on his face that she has a talent for driving people crazy, but he asked her not to do it again. She doesn't even know how to react to this. The girl simply didn't hear that he thought that she ran away from him, although in fact she was just in the library. Noticing that his leg was slightly injured, she suggested treating the wound before it was too late. Just before that, he asked to answer the question, does it really mean that she wasn't going to leave him and was telling the truth when she promised to stay here until he returned? As expected, he began to wonder how it happened that no one had seen her for so long. The girl apologized for making everyone worry when no one could find her, and then said that she was just reading a book in her office and didn't notice how she fell asleep. And then she realizes that after such a hard day, she has to take care of him. So first she asked the butler to prepare a bath for his lordship, and she will also need a change of clothes. The maid took this matter upon herself. She promised to deal with it in the nearest future, because she had just finished all her work. Then the girl asked to be addressed by her first name from that day on. Now she understands how awkward it is when everyone around you calls you so formally, even when it is not necessary. Everyone agreed, and she is glad that they have such a good relationship, which she didn't even dream of at the beginning. No one has ever shown that they don't like her in any way. It's absolutely the opposite. They treat her in exactly the same way as the master, and in some cases, even more attentively. Time passed. She had already put him to bed. In the warmth, he was so tired that he could fall asleep at any moment. It is possible that now he no longer hears or notices anything around him. The girl waited until he stopped moving, then decided to leave so that he could rest peacefully in his room, when suddenly a hand reached out and grabbed her. I had to come up with the idea that she just wanted to take a towel to dry him off, but he doesn't want to hear anything, just hugs and asks her to stay put. Ona repeats that if you don't wipe it off, he'll catch a cold and nothing good will come of it. The lady keeps repeating that she doesn't understand why he started behaving like that in such weather. And this time, the guy admitted that there is a reason for it. He said that every time it rained, someone died or left him forever, so at such moments he can't do anything about it. After these words, she realized that it turns out that today he thought that she disappeared because it started raining. Then she said that he was worried in vain, because she was bound by a contract and was obliged to stay here for a whole year. After that, he asked what would happen when this year ends. Would she be with him or not? But she didn't expect such a question from him. The lady didn't have time to answer him. The maid came up to them and said that the bath was ready. If only she knew that one or two had already forgotten about her. I wonder if the guy would even take a bath after he almost fell asleep. After some time, Leticia is already walking alone along the corridor and thought that if you think about it, a whole week of the promised year has already passed. Time flies by unnoticed, but in some moments it can be very slow. She thinks about it so much that she got overexcited and her nose started bleeding. Luckily, not too much. She managed to hold it in. This is not very good. Usually its quantity was even less. At what rate doubts arise whether it will last this year. This time, she miraculously managed not to think about it. The girl calmly went into her room and admired it for a bit before going to bed. She was already covering herself with a blanket when suddenly there was a knock on the door. Only this time, she had no idea who it could be. The girl asked him what happened because she didn't even want to waste time guessing about anything. She expected to hear anything from him, and then he says that he will probably stay here tonight.